Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but in that short time they've built up a very good reputation for themselves. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they have done a good variety of different IPAs, and they are starting to branch out a little bit into different kinds of sour beer and things like that, as well as doing other bits and bobs with lagers and imperial stouts and stuff like that. So they are diversifying a little bit basically in recent times. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases that I've seen here in Hong Kong. It's a style that I've had from these guys a number of times before, and it's a style that I know they can do very well. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this particular beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Mochimune, which is in Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan, kind of to the south of Tokyo in the Mount Fuji area, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful West Coast Brewing. So this particular beer is called Attuned. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is another double IPA, or they're calling it a hazy double IPA. So yeah, we can say New England hazy, imperial double, whatever we want. But yeah, I got this one at City Super here in Hong Kong, and it seems that they get a decent number of the beers from West Coast Brewing over here through there. So yeah, something I need to keep an eye on going forward, because I do enjoy trying the different West Coast things, and I miss my Japanese beer, I really do. So yeah, definitely nice to return to these guys after a couple of months, if memory serves me correctly. And yeah, you always get pretty solid beer. So if you're interested in Japanese craft beer, West Coast Brewing are one of the ones that you definitely need to check out at the moment. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer has in store for us. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from West Coast Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to quite regularly, of course, since I am now based out here in Asia, and I do go over to Japan regularly to visit my son. And yeah, do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about West Coast Brewing once again then. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, West Coast Brewing are based in Mochimune City in Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan, right next to Mount Fuji. Very beautiful region of the country that I recommend you visit, incidentally. But this brewery was founded back in 2019 by Derek Baston, who's originally from Seattle in Washington in the US Pacific Northwest, and he previously worked as an architect. So Derek originally came to Shizuoka back in 2003, and he would often visit breweries during his trips home to the US, and he said that he'd always been inspired by the craftsmanship that went into the West Coast US beers, and he really wanted to bring some of that back to Japan with him, because he felt there weren't many breweries really doing this. But apparently the idea to found his own brewery can be traced back to 2014, when he designed the Shizuoka distillery for Gaia Flow, and this was his first real look inside the brewing and distilling world, and it inspired him to visit other breweries and distilleries and talk to those inside the industry. And apparently doing this made the whole process of starting his own brewery a lot less daunting to him. But he founded a bar in Shizuoka called 12 to sort of test the water and see if the beers that he wanted to brew would be a hit, and it quickly became clear through this bar that he would be able to brew what he wanted. But they found a premises in an abandoned tuna processing factory in the Mochimune marina, and they renovated it and converted it into a brewery. So the brewery is equipped with a 10 BBL system, which is around 1600 litres per brew. They've got 10 fermentation vessels in there and 2 bright beer tanks. I think they've got room to expand this as well, from what I understand. But they're brewing between 12 and 20,000 litres of beer per month. And the 3 brewers are Satoshi Niwa, who is from Japan. He's the brewing manager. Then there's Cedric Mel, who is from France. And there's also Grant Scholler in there from the US. But the brewery's mascot is the Hop Dude, who you can see in the label there. I'll let you have a little closer look at that a wee bit later on. And this artwork is designed by Simon Henshaw. But over the years, or over the first few years, they leaned mainly toward brewing different IPAs, but they're in the process of establishing a barrel program at the moment. I think they have released 1 or 2 beers from that thus far, but they are still working to build it up. And they've also been opening up a number of bars and tap rooms in recent times. This includes Bao, which is gyoza, 12, which is the izakaya, the original one of course, number 3, which is a bottle shop. These are all in Shizuoka City. There's the Oasis bar in Hamamatsu. And then they've also got Umeda 1, which is a bar, and Dark Lab, both of which you can find up in Osaka. So I do need to go and visit those when I go over there in a couple of weeks' time. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 375 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I said to you, this brewery are probably best known for the different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they have been doing a number of other styles as well. We've had West Coast IPAs from these guys, which have been pretty good. And yeah, we've also had 1 or 2 lagers from them as well, actually. So yeah, this is definitely one of the Japanese breweries that you really need to check out if you get the chance. I think this is actually the first one of their beers that we're reviewing in a different country, because I always look at these beers when I go to Japan, of course. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about West Coast Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So this one, incidentally, is a half-litre can. I think I paid about maybe about 100 Hong Kong dollars for this one. So yeah, that's about £10 sterling, somewhere in the region of like 2,000 Japanese yen. So a good bit more expensive actually than I would have paid for it in Japan. But you know, beer in Hong Kong is expensive. Hong Kong is expensive. But yeah, it gives you some kind of idea. There you can see the lovely artwork on this one. The Hop Dudes are putting their magic stones on the door to open it up, which looks pretty cool. Plain silver top on the can there, 8.5% ABV. This one, as we said, a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This one is hopped with Nelson Sauvin and Peacherine, both of which are New Zealand hops. Nelson Sauvin, of course, is one that we've come across many times before. Your classic New Zealand hop there, 16% alpha acid. It gives you that big sort of gooseberry oil on. It can have quite a big green component too as well. But Peacherine is a relatively new hop that was only released in 2002. So this one was developed by Freestyle Hops. It gives you 6% alpha acid, 6% beta acid, and it gives you flavours of peaches, nectarine kind of things. And then it also has quite a big lime note to it, and also a kind of big distinctive floral green component apparently. I might have had this hop before. I honestly couldn't tell you, because some breweries don't tell you the hops, but this is the first time I believe that I'm consciously having this particular hop. So I think this should be quite interesting in that regard. I didn't know that when I actually bought this beer. I just saw it in City Super and thought, you know, I want to have a go at this one. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about the beer. There was a little blurb on this one on the Untappd page. Let me just check there. So it says 3 trials down, 3 seagulls in hand. Seagulls? Not sure how to pronounce that. Easier than massive quest chains that start with farming elites with groups of randos. Yes, way freaking easier than unlocking the heroic and having to basically clear every dungeon just to sniff Epic Dungeon B to get to Epic Raid C. Yes, we lived that and it was brutal but awesome. Our band of hop heroes have now traversed and triumphed over the Ahem to unlock the door of destiny and to make their way to the heart of the Dark Lab. How does it feel to finally be attuned, relief, anxiety, probably a lot of both. We can tell you now what it tastes like. Placing the final sigil into the door is kind of like unlocking the riffs of tropical mango, papaya, passion fruit, a la our lupulin friends Freestyle, Kohia Nelson, and Peacherine. Beyond the door, what foes and epics await? How many more freaking bosses are there? Let's around and find out, shall we? Yeah. So, yeah, that's the little blurb that was on the Untappd page there. We can get rid of that now and focus on the beer. So yeah, 8.5% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, this one, with a new hop in it that I haven't tried before, Peacherine. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and we'll see what it's all about. Yeah, actually, the canning of this one was fairly fresh, considering it's an import as well. So this one was canned on the 7th of May, and I'm just drinking it for you at the very end of June 2024. And as I say, I have no idea when City Super would have got this in. I just came across it randomly when I was in there the other day. So yeah, a nice surprise find actually. So yeah, let's have a wee look at this one then. So as you can see, the beer, I think we've got maybe about 75%, 2/3 of the beer out into the glass, but you can see this beer's poured with more than a finger of quite a bumpy, I would say kind of slightly cream coloured head there. You can see some medium-sized bubbles sitting at the top of the liquid there, and you can see it just gets a little bit more bumpy and soapy the further up that you go. I can't remember whether the other West Coast beers behaved exactly like this with their heads, but yeah, you can see it is kind of starting to fade away to just be a more sort of thin. It's going to fade away to be a kind of more thin, bumpy and foamy layer. But yeah, colour wise, this one is really nice. This is a lovely, very bright yellow sort of mango juice colour. We've seen this from New England IPAs many times before. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of hops that you use. This goes a long way to, the type of malts you use, sorry. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't really have to care about that often when it comes to IPAs, especially not the New England hazies. Now the level of haze in this one is kind of what you would expect from a New England double, and remember the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer and so on. But yeah, as I say, the level of haze in this one for an 8% is about what you would expect. It looks really, really nice. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass with this one, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there, but you can see the head has faded away to just be a nice sort of thinner foamy layer there. But it looks good, this one, pretty much as you would expect of a New England hazy IPA. So yeah, remember the defining characteristic of these beers as opposed to the West Coast IPAs is the more hazy backbone because of the presence of wheat and oats in the malt base as well as barley malt. West Coast IPAs use mostly barley malt, whereas these beers are also softer and juicier due to the hoppings compared to the more bitter and dank West Coast IPAs. We'll come to that later on in the video. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see how we go. So, yeah, this smells pretty nice. You can tell it's not in its absolute prime freshness, but it is about 2 months old. It's kind of just getting toward the end of its kind of prime freshness. For me, you should really drink these beers between, maybe about 3 or so weeks in the can to, sort of about 2 months. So we're still getting this beer in pretty damn good condition, I would say. But it smells great, this one. It kind of gives you everything you'd expect of the style. You've got the big, lovely, smooth, bready backbone and stuff to it, the nice bright green component, and also the big, juicy, fruity characters coming out of this one. So let's just break that aroma down for you and describe it a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, yeah, the backbone of this beer then, for me, with the New England IPAs, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of things. So yeah, you have the farmhousey yeasty character, the rye lean and grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs. You've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. So yeah, with this one, it actually comes across as being quite well balanced. There's a little bit of sweetness, There's quite a lot of barley malt in this one, I would say. Getting a wee bit of oat and a little bit of wheaty bitiness behind it as well. So there is a little bit of everything going on in this one. But yeah, for me, the malty backbone of this beer, I think, is really nice. So you get a nice little bit of like fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. Definitely a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker in there, little touch of woodiness of course as well. But then yeah, on top of that, fresh, fluffy white bread in there. You can smell a little bit of the more dense, wheaty white bread as well, and a wee bit of the kind of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose. So yeah, soft, fluffy white bread in there, nice little bit of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, like I said. And then yeah, you have that, you have that sort of, you have a little bit of the oaty character in this one as well, and I think the more that you smell of this, you actually do get a little bit more of the oatiness out of it. So as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, oatiness is a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the older the beer is, the drier the oat smell, the younger it is, the kind of creamier they smell. So it can give you a rough idea. It's not wholly accurate, that, but I've often found that. So you're getting a wee touch of creaminess and smoothness out of the oats in here, but there is a little bit of the dryness kind of coming out in this one for sure. So yeah, you can smell that more dense wheaty white bread in there. There's a wee bit of oaty creaminess as well. And then yeah, you do have a little touch of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of the malt base in this beer as well. So yeah, nice little bit of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit in this one. Yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really nice. So yeah, malty side of this one is quite nice, I have to say. I think we're going to get a bit more complexity out of the yeasty side of the beer in the malt base. But yeah, the hoppy side of things then. So green component. As I've told you in many reviews before, there are three types of hoppings to think about when it comes to IPAs. You have early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker flavour and aroma. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil will give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, I would say. So yeah, that will give you a brighter green component overall. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's going to give you, basically all flavour and aroma, if you like, and a brighter green component. So yeah, New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs tend to use all three, which is why they have that more kind of bitter, piney green component to them, I would say. But yeah, with this one, it's lovely and bright. For me, there's a little tiny touch of earthiness to this one, but not a lot. A little bit of herbal character in there as well, but mainly the green component in this one is nice and bright and floral. There's quite a wee bit of grassiness in there as well. But yeah, these are things that you would always expect from these New England IPAs. The fruity side of things in this beer, though, is where it gets quite interesting, because we know what Nelson Sauvignon is like. It gives you that big white wine, green grapey sort of thing, and that's quite evident in this beer. You can smell that nice oily component to it. But I will say, when you take the aroma in, like a bit more deeply, you can smell a little bit of that. You can smell a little bit of the limey component from the peacherine, and then you can smell like this soft, peachy kind of character coming out of this one, the peachy nectarine sort of thing. So yeah, for me, it's got quite a tropical component to it, this one, to be honest with you. I mean, the characteristics you're getting out of this peacherine, it's kind of similar to like a combination of maybe Idaho 7 and Motueka, something like that. Because yeah, there's quite a little bit like mango and pineapple-y character in this beer for me. maybe softer apricot as well. So there's a nice, the kind of peachy, nectarine sort of thing coming out of this one. Has a bit more complexity to it, but yeah, the peach is definitely the thing that's sitting there on the top of your nose. And as I say, underneath that, bit of apricot, bit of pineapple and stuff. And then yeah, you've got a nice limey component to it, and also the also that kind of oily Nelson Sauvin white green grapey character underneath it as well. But yeah, they were saying it was freestyle Kahia Nelson, so I think it's the same hop, just grown in a different region. I'm not up to date with, I know some of the regions, of course, in New Zealand, but Kahia I don't think I've come across before. But yeah, anyway, we've covered the aroma of this beer now. I think it's about time to have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Attuned, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial, or whatever you want to call it, IPA, with Nelson Sauvin, New Zealand Sauvin hops, and a peacherine, which I've never encountered before consciously. This one comes to you from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka Prefecture, over in Japan. Let's put a wee bit more of it into the glass to get it ready. Still a little bit left in the can there, but yeah, let's get stuck into this one then and see what it's all about. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kampai. Oh yeah, it's pretty damn solid. I wouldn't expect anything less from West Coast Brewing right enough, but yeah, this is pretty good. So, first impression of this one is big, soft, creamy and smooth. New England double IPA, this one. The more that now that I've actually had a sip of this thing, I'd say the oaty presence is it's definitely a little bit more noticeable in the flavour of the beer than it was in the aroma. That's definitely safe to say. But yeah, again, this beer gives you everything you'd expect of the style. We've had many of these beers on the channel over the years. I'm not surprised at this one and how good it is, because I know the brewery fairly well, but it's another very solid beer from these guys. So if you enjoy a bit more oaty, creamy, smooth leaning New England IPA, this is going to be right up your street. So let's have a wee look at this one then properly and just break the flavour down and describe what it's all about for you. I will say though, if you take a slightly bigger gulp of this one, you're going to get more of the wheaty character out of it. So yeah, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer is that lovely, smooth, fresh, white bready bread crust. You can feel that just forming the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward there, you've got a nice little bit of woody component to this one, which I think is very nice. You can feel that little bit of woodiness in there. Then above that, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing too, but not too crackery. The bread crust, the wholemeal brown bready bread crust that's in there, and fresh white bready bread crust that mixes up, and the cracker and the wood, it's all kind of, it gives the beer just this kind of rich backbone, which I do really enjoy. But yeah, one thing that we didn't really pick up in the aroma is that this beer, it does have in that middle third of your palate, it's got a little bit more of it does have a little bit more of that kind of wholemeal brown bready type note to it, which I think is nice. So there's a little layer of that in there above the kind of bread crust and the cracker and things. So yeah, bread crust, cracker, wholemeal brown bready character. Then you start to get the white bready note coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, definitely a wee bit of a wholemeal. Yeah, definitely a wee bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready character in the base, then the softer white bready character above that. Then you can feel that the next layer up is that more dense, wheaty white bready character there. It does have a wee bit of bitiness to it. Remember, sweeter flavours come out further forward on your palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So there's a little bit of that kind of more bitey, wheaty character further back on the palate, a little bit more of a, yeah, definitely a little bit more of a sweeter. Yeah, definitely a little bit more of I would say kind of bitey, wheaty character at the back, and then it just mellows out as you come further forward. So you can feel a little bit of wheaty bitiness further back, and it just mellows out and smoothens out a wee bit further forward. But on top of that wheaty white bready layer, you're starting to get the oaty side of this beer. So if you go down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that nice, dense, slightly creamy oaty character. And as you just move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of the you do get a little touch of dryness just creeping out of the oaty side of things, but overall it's quite creamy and quite smooth. But yeah, on top of the oaty side of things, there's a little circle there in the dead centre of your palate where you get that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing, and that's the nice yeah, that's the sort of the alcohol flavours coming out of this one. Yeah, a little bit of sweetness there. There's maybe a wee touch of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit in this beer as well, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, it feels like a wee while since I've reviewed an IPA, which actually before this video, it has been a couple of weeks. So yeah, interesting point to make about this one actually. So yeah, that I think covers the middle third of your palate in this beer. There's a wee bit of kind of woodiness and very crusty character. It pushes its way to the surface again the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, let's look at the back third of your palate then. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base and the more white bready character on top, and then a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness there. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a nice kind of you do have that nice sort of kind of white bready bread crust in there. It feels that little bit drier. Then you've got the crackery layer above that, which again feels a little bit drier. Then the wholemeal brown bready layer is there, which feels a little bit lighter, more airy. Then above that you've got the white bready layer in there, which was a little bit lighter and more airy as well, and a wee bit drier too. But then above that you have a wee bit of kind of more, you've got the wee bit of a more kind of white bready, wheaty sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, you get that little bit of wheaty bitey character coming out of the beer too, which I do really like. So yeah, above that you do have a little bit of you know, above that you do have the yeasty character coming out of this beer as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, there's maybe a little bit of like sweet wholemeal brown bread at the centre. Then you've got the white bready character kind of surrounding that, and then it's got a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty or wheaty bitey character around the very edge. But definitely, yeah, you can feel the flavour on the back third of your palate with this one is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that the malty yeasty side of this beer goes together I think is really, really nice. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things, the green component first. So in the back corners of the palate you do have a little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward there's a little bit of earthy character as well, and as you push further forward along the sides of the palate there, you do get that little bit of floral, aromatic character coming out of it as well. It's not really too big and too deep and dank, this beer, or anything like that. It just has that nice little bit of lingering floral bitterness there into the aftertaste, little touch of spice as well. But yeah, I wonder if that green component, that the floral character that the peacherine is supposed to have is meant to be a little bit smoother and a little bit more oily, because the green component in this one is particularly oily, and it kind of reminds me a wee bit of yeah, it kind of reminds me a wee bit more of like you know, when you add you know, when it's gone right on my head now, the cryo powder, that's it, the cryo oils and stuff like that. Brain is terrible today, guys. It's just not working. My IPA review brain has gone. But yeah, round the front curve of your palate you definitely got a little bit of a lighter, more grassy kind of thing with this one. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together I think is really, really nice. So yeah, So yeah, the fruity side of things in this one, let's look at that front third of your palate then. So the border region, between middle and front third of your palate, then you can feel there's a little bit of kind of brown bread in the base, the white brown top, and a wee touch of the wheatiness there above that. And the base of that front third of your palate again, you've got the nice bread crusty character in there, the Jacob's cream cracker, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bread, the smoother aspect of the wheat, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of this one then, just to round off the tasting section. So yeah, fruity side of this beer for me. At the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of, how would we even say, you've got a little bit of the peachy sharpness like starts to come out, so you can really feel that sharper side of the peach, and then as you come further forward it sort of mellows out and becomes more kind of ripe and juicy, if that makes sense. But then yeah, when you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got a sort of mango-y, I don't know if I want to say pineapple, you've got a mango-y and kind of apricot-y note there right in the middle of that front third of your palate. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of, you get that oily white green grapey gooseberry type character from the Nelson Sauvignon for sure. So yeah, as you just get to behind the very front tip of the tongue as well, you can feel there's a little bit of a sort of sharper limey character there as well, which I'm guessing is the peacherine in this one. So that's definitely quite apparent in this beer. So the Nelson Sauvignon is forming the backbone of this beer, whereas the peacherine is giving you this kind of more like, yeah, the more tropical notes and the wee bit of limey character. Really interesting hop actually, and that's one of the things with a number of the New Zealand hops. They're lower in alpha acid, but they can give you quite a lot of fruity character to the beer, and they're very good as dry hopping hops as a result of that, because of their low alpha acid content. But yeah, fruity side of this one is really quite interesting. There's a sharp peach that lingers into the aftertaste, the lime comes out as well, then you have the nice oily Nelson Sauvignon type character sitting underneath it, which goes very nicely as well. So yeah, quite pleased with this one, I have to say. I think this has been a really interesting beer to try. It definitely has all the characteristics you'd expect of a West Coast brewing and New England double, and it just gives you something that wee bit different too, which you want, having tried so many other beers. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section. Let's just round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, mouthfeel wise, I'd say top end of mid-body, but this one in fairness I think it does feel quite light and easy to drink. For an 8.5%, it is dangerously easy to drink. So yeah, I'd say yeah, top end of mid-body. Carbonation's quite smooth. The beer does have a little touch of oiliness and slickness to it, but it's quite creamy and smooth at the same time, and it gets a little bit drier into the aftertaste. In terms of your IBU count in this beer, it feels quite low in this one. I'd say it's maybe about, it could be 30, but maybe because it's a double IP it could be 40. Always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt, because you know it's my weakest point of beer reviewing for sure. So I think this one's probably about 40-ish IBUs, because you do get that wee bit of lingering bitterness in the aftertaste. But like we said, the malt base is a bit of dryness underneath, the smoothness in the middle, the creaminess and the slight sweetness on top, and then yeah, you've got that lovely juicy fruity character to this one as well, which I think is really nice. The fruity character in this one, that mix of tropical, bit of lime in there, and you've got that little bit of peachy sharpness. It's really interesting from that perspective, because it's kind of unique. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really nice beer to drink, and this is a brew that I really enjoy as well. So definitely worth checking out if you're interested in Japanese craft beer. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from West Coast Brewing as well. And we will be returning to these guys again at some point in the very near future, I'm sure. But yeah, this one was the Attuned. from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan. Check out their beers, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I will catch you guys in another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and kanpai.